Shadowing. Australian dream sourcing for some who bought homes in Sydney outer suburb. In some of Sydney's newest outer suburbs, families have bought into the Australian dream. Many are migrants who moved here, lured by promise of a brighter future for their children. We knew that when building a new high school in a new area, you're gonna get the good education. In 2019, F.S. Poole and his friends both bought land in Marshall Park, 50 kilometers from Sydney's CBD. The new community offered large, more affordable homes, but the compromise for many is a long commute to work. Because we know a lot of these people moving here, we have to travel 3 hours at least, but we sacrificed these 3 hours because we knew the high school is coming up. 4 years on high school that was promised in 2019 is still an empty block. One of the closest public schools is 10 kilometers away, but it's over capacity, so Mr. Price enrolled his son in the nearby private school. It wasn't painful first year, 2 months, but this year definitely. After encouragement or interest rate, now we are paying 50% more on our mortgage. The government says the school will open in 2025. Labor says it will open door next full year. But for this family, it might be too late as the financial strain grows. We have to think for other options, like we have to move somewhere to get a good school. Marshall Park is the fastest growing suburb in New South Wales, a prime example of the new suburb popping up the outskirts of Australia's most expensive housing market. More than 40,000 people living now. 69% of them are couples with children, and population is expected to more than triple by 2040. Despite billions in government spending, voters say infrastructure isn't keeping up, adding to pressure on their daily lives. After Sultan and her family moved from Bangladesh to Sydney 3 years ago. For me, I came here only because of my kids. I choose this life for my kids, for their better future. While she's love her home, some costs are now hard to bear. If I get a toll road, it can be short, but I can't because this cost. She avoids toll, so her 3-hour round trip to work turns into 4. Something's hard. Yes, I need. If you have kids at home, they're calling you like, where are you, mama? It is sometimes it is hard for me. She wants more public transport nearby. If we have bus near, so it is good for us. Many families here rely on 2 incomes to pay for rising mortgages. But for a TI nation's shortage of local childcare places means she can't return to work. We have applied for my son's childcare that's been like more than a year, but we have not got a place. We need to apply for her as well. It is important for us because both me and my husband really works. So if we don't find a spot, especially for her, if you don't find a spot, By the end of July, that would be hard for me to go back to work. She's on the waiting list for the only nearby childcare center. I have been working since I graduated from university, so it's also not only for money, but it's also my kind of lifestyle that I work and I also spend time at home. So it is important for us. These growing pains in Sydney Freeze Sea are likely to impact the poll and could very well determine the outcome on the 25th of March. Why? Because it's happening in electorate is crucial to this election. Labour is expected to retain this seat of Londonderry, but have to snatch neighbouring Riverson and Pendring from the Labour. This is also the new seat of Leppington, which will be tightly contested, so there are votes break up for both major parties. Families in Sydney out of suburb are not ready to give up on the Australian dream. As the state election looms, the message from voters to all sides of politics is that keeping promises matters. Running Headman, ABC News, Sydney. Want more? In Southern Sydney, US outer suburb, families have bought into the Australian dream. Many are migrants who moved here, lured by the promise of a brighter future for their children. In 2019, Abbotsford and his friends both bought land in Marston Park, 50 kilometers from Sydney CBD. The new community offers lots more affordable homes, but the compromise for many is a long commute to work. Because a lot of more move here that we have to travel 3 hours at least, but we sacrifice these 3 hours that because we knew the high school is coming up. 4 years on the high school that was promised 2019 is still an empty block. One of the closest public schools is 10 kilometers away, but it's over capacity. So Mr. Poa enrolls his son in the nearby private school. The government says the school will open in 2025. Labour says it will open the door next year. But for this family, it might be too late as the financial strain grows. We have to think for other options, like we have to make more somewhere to get a good school. Master Park is the fastest growing suburb in New South Wales, a prime example of the new suburbs popping up the outskirts of Australia's most expensive housing market. More than 40,000 people live here now. 69% of them are couples with children. The population is expected to more than triple by 2040. Despite billions in government spending, voters saying infrastructure isn't keeping up, adding to the pressure on their daily lives. Afrin Sultana and her family moved from Bangladesh to Sydney 3 years ago. For me, I came here only because of my kids. I choose this life for my kids. While she loves her home, some costs are now hard to bear. She avoids toll, so her 3-hour round trip to work turns into 4. She wants more public transport nearby. Many families here rely on 2 incomes to pay for rising mortgages. But for a TI's Nancy, the shortage of local childcare places mean she can't return to work. She's on the waiting list for the only nearby child care center. These growing pains in Sydney prejudices are likely to impact the poll and could very well determine the outcome on the 25th of March. Why? Because it's happening in electorate. It's crucial to this election. Labour is expected to retain this seat of Londonderry and hopes to snag neighbouring Riverstone and Penrith from the Labour. It is also the new seat of Leppington, which will be tightly contested, so there are both offer ground for both major parties. Families in Sydney out of suburb are not ready to give up the Australian dream. As the state election looms, the message from voters to all sides of politics is that keeping promises matter. Running Hamid, ABC News, Sydney.